is a lenticular object, and when you look at the shadow being cast, it is significantly large. It's an altitude of 21,000 feet. Taken by a civilian pilot. Now, why is this important? I'll pass this around. Another copy here, if you could, Kirk, when you're finished as well, please pass on down to them. This is taken from a civilian pilot. Right? Not a FLIR system, not an infrared system, but an average person with an average camera at 21,000 feet. And the object potentially is anywhere between 600 to 1,000 feet in diameter. It's a lenticular object, and it is silver. Now, I cannot vouch for the veracity of this photograph. I didn't take it.
It's entirely possible that we might not have recovered materials, but UAP are very real. And here addressing it is an urgent issue. And I have a concern that if that issue is not in some way validated or addressed, it runs the risk of discrediting the entire topic. And we've made enormous progress. Nothing happened essentially from the Blue Book days until 2017. And I fear that if there isn't some effective way of addressing this, that we run the risk of major setback.
Now, Enrico Fermi, 1950, had lunch at Los Alamos, and in his Italian accent, he asked, "Where is everybody?" And that's a question that every lonely person asks. And what you tell a lonely person is, don't be presumptuous. Your partner will not come to you. You're not that attractive. You have to go to dating sites. And Enrico Fermi didn't even build a telescope to look out. Didn't have cameras to check. And so saying, "Where is everybody?" is arrogant.
Thanks for being with us, everyone. Welcome back. Here we go. The sDm Files, episode 14. Make sure to check out all the links down in your breadbasket. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends. Come find me at x.com/shutdownmind. We'll do the thing. Here we go.
It is a lenticular object, and when you look at the shadow being cast, it is significantly large. It's an altitude of 21,000 feet.
Ooh, there was like this one person in the audience. Ooh. I watched this yesterday while I was live streaming, more or less live. I think the post was like 2-3 minutes old when I saw it while I was streaming, and this was my initial reaction.
Significantly large.
It's significantly large. Because this is the worst image ever. I mean, especially when he's holding it up here, it just looks like a blurry mess. We get a little bit more detail here on the right-hand side, and I'll show you guys.
As I mentioned earlier, Lou, I think there's piles of that stuff. And I think there's so much of it, it's kind of hard to gauge what the consequences are. Because my understanding is that they adopted the classification guide, which basically says anything and everything you do in UAP is classified. Heretofore.
The videos that we're using and that most people are using are from Polarity. He did a really great job. Thanks, Polarity. Got in there and basically fixed up the audio. He calls HQ audio, but fixed up the audio. The audio at the UAP hearing that was being live streamed was complete trash, which is incredible because this is the, Congress. This is the American Congress. This is the U.S. Congress. Putting on a hearing about UAPs, and you can't even hear anything anyone's saying. And you can't see any of the slides that anyone was using. The only person I was 100% sure was actually using slides was Avi Loeb. So anyways, thanks Polarity for putting together, not just putting them together, also separated them by speaker. So on Polarity's YouTube channel, you can find all of the speakers, the entire hearing with updated upscaled, corrected audio. So that's what the video that most people are using. You'll see that some people are using like Red Panda Koala also, which I'm not sure if that's the same video that Red Panda was going over, or if Red Panda has his own stream and had corrected the audio. Doesn't matter. Really, you can't get good audio directly from the UAP hearing. So you basically have to go through someone's podcast or someone else's YouTube channel if you want to actually hear what anyone was talking about on this day. And so anyways, that's kind of a minimum of 6 videos that you kind of want to watch through. I think in total, or at least the vetted podcast live stream was really close to 4 hours, all together. I think that's counting everything though. That's all of the nonsense of them walking in and shaking each other's hands and all the introductions and the speech from Elizondo before and after. For some reason, Lue Elizondo is like the leader of the forum, the leader of the panel. He's conducting the hearing, really, if this is actually a hearing. Doesn't really feel or look like a actual congressional hearing. We've got the 2 Congress people just kind of hanging out down here on the panel. Actually 3, if you count them all. They got Luna, Burleson, and Burlachet, whatever. It doesn't matter. And my opinion on Congress and politicians is not a good one. So we get into the ufology people that are here. We got Lue Elizondo, Chris Mellon, Admiral Tim G, Kirk McConnell, Eric Davis, and Avi Loeb. And I've been saying since watching it, and even before, this is a really shitty deal. This is the shitty end of the stick for everyone involved, really, but especially Avi Loeb, who is super courageous to stand here with these other kind of like whack jobs and put on his presentation, which he must be doing all over everywhere because he's obviously a tenacious little fucker. And so he's got this presentation that he's giving to try and get funding for his Galileo project to look for more UFO and alien stuff in the ocean, but also to send something after the Oumuamua thing that he is convinced is an alien spaceship that came to check us out and probably drop off probes and even collect other probes. And so he never says much of that because, like I said, he's kind of like putting on his presentation asking for $1 billion. But he really shouldn't have been here. This is more damnation for Avi Loeb than it is probably helpful for his cause of trying to get money, because he's doing his own thing. So they're not going to hurt his work really, but they're definitely setting him back as far as trying to get the cash that he's looking for. And like I said, he's courageous, so he probably doesn't care. He floats on his own work, on his own merits. So I guess that's all. Hats off to Avi Loeb for being able to stomach even being here with these jokers. And like even the clip that I use for Tim G, who is, I don't even know why this guy's here. Like, why is he here at this UAP meeting? For several reasons, but you'll watch Avi Loeb. It kind of seems like he's trying to stay awake, politely laughing, sorta, at the little jokes that Gallaudet is sort of making. And then, if you watch Tim Gallaudet, I don't really know why you would, but if you watch what he has to say during this hearing, is he spends 8 minutes bitching about climate change activists and their impact on the media and Congress, and how their so-called kind of crying wolf or the sky is falling affects all of the topics, including this one, in a negative manner. And that's it. That's what he has to offer. And this guy, and he's not the only one. He's the only other guy on this panel, I think, who's with Lue Elizondo at the last congressional hearing. But there's some other dudes in the audience, like Ryan Graves is kind of right here in the middle with the shaved head in between these gals. Ryan Graves, there's a bunch of others who were asked questions in written format by Tim Berlichet, who's sitting kind of right there, dead center, almost dead center. Right here's the Congress people. He asked them all basically the same kinds of questions. I think there was 6 or 8 folks. I don't remember all their names, but Lue Elizondo, Chris Mellon, Ryan Graves were some of the guys. And his questions were, well, tell us more. Tell us about aliens. Tell us about UFOs. Tell us about legacy programs. Tell us about crash retrievals. Tell us about your experiences with UFOs and aliens. And every single one of these characters answered all of those questions basically the same exact way, written right back to the congressman. And they all said, almost without skipping a beat, and this is to all of his different questions. I don't know if he asked them all the same 20 questions or if he just asked them all very similar 20 questions. They all wrote back and almost to each question and said, I don't have any direct knowledge of UFOs and aliens, and I have no additional info to offer Congress, you, Congressman Burchett, about anything beyond the public comments that I've already made in public and to Congress. So he asked them all 20 questions. They all wrote back on each of the 20 questions, I don't know, and I have nothing else to offer. And so I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense to me why you would have any of these other characters involved in any other hearing if that is their answer to the questions. Because they've said it. They've said it many, 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 many times on their road to getting to Congress, when they're at Congress, and then when they were asked in written form by Congress, tell us about UFOs and aliens. They all wrote back and said, I don't know. I got nothing else to add. I have no direct knowledge of UFOs and aliens, and I have nothing else to add beyond my public comments. So why is Tim Gallaudet's name on this table if that's his response to Congress after the first couple times showing up? I don't know. And I think it starts to invalidate the hearing, the Congress people, all the other people in the room, that they would include him and do it in a serious way. And that's before we start talking about Eric Davis, Lue Elizondo, etc. And it's kind of the same thing with Chris Mellon. Chris Mellon, when we look at his portion, and we could jump over, actually for, it's not all of them. The only person that I saw getting UFO Joe's transcription treatment was Christopher Mellon. And so you can go to UFO Joe on Twitter, Joe Murigia, UFO Joe. Go check out his Twitter page, and you'll see him doing a transcription of all the words that Chris Mellon said. And it was especially informative and helpful because the audio was so shitty at first. And so Chris Mellon says significant stuff, primarily that there may not be crash retrievals. There may not be any UFOs or aliens that have been retrieved. And until that kind of point in ufology and in this whole modern update of the cover-up is addressed in some manner, then we really have kind of a problem going forward from 2017. And that they may not exist, and that has to be part of the address that comes from the powers that be, Congress, the executive branch, whoever, is that they need to convince us that they don't have any crashes or UFOs or aliens that they've retrieved, and they need to do it in a convincing manner, or they need to show us and admit to us that they have. And he says we might not actually have crash retrievals. So that's probably the most significant testimony of the entire hearing, is when Chris Mellon stands up there and says, I'm not sure we got anything, guys. And you see Ufology has taken that on X and cried about it a little bit. But everything that we could possibly talk about and have talked about or would talk about or anyone is talking about is completely overshadowed by Lue Elizondo 3.0 holding up a picture of what we're calling an irrigation circle at this point. And as he holds it up, he says, "This is a picture taken by a commercial pilot of a lenticular silver object approximately 1,000 feet in diameter from 21,000 feet." And, you know, it was showing like the sneezing monkey and the rest of the internet collectively laughed out loud. Literally, as he holds up this photo and says, "I haven't verified this." This guy claims to be a counterintelligence agent. He claims to have run ATIP. He claims to have worked on all sorts of intelligence involving UFOs and aliens. And so at the last minute, he said he got this picture and got permission to show it to Congress and the rest of the world. And it's absolute shit. It's a picture of a fucking farmer's automated field. And when you zoom out or you go look at that area, you see that there's thousands of them. So if this came from some kind of pilot, it seems completely unlikely that any kind of pilot anywhere would be looking down at hundreds of irrigation circles and think that that one right there is a 1,000 foot UFO hovering and casting a shadow. And so, you know, any pretense that this was a mistake by Lue Elizondo or just a misjudgment that he decided to hold up a picture that was unvetted to Congress is nuts. I mean, it's really absolutely nuts and crazy at this point to even suggest that. And this isn't the first time, and that's what has now gone on. Since the very moment this aired, the internet has been exploding. UFO Twitter has been completely broken by this because this guy has discredited this entire hearing, everyone at it, everyone in the crowd, everyone who shared it, anyone who said anything. And now we have just the two sides of UFO Twitter going at it, and they're both saying the same thing. They're just, one side saying, "Man, that weirdo Lue, he really made a mistake by holding up a picture that he didn't vet, and he was obviously fooled by that pilot." And the other half saying, this is kind of regular behavior. This is regular behavior really since day one. But you can find all sorts of examples of Lue Elizondo doing the same thing. And everyone goes first to the chandelier picture that was really not that long ago, that he was showing to rooms of rich people who were paying him to give them presentations. And so if you just clicked over to UFO Twitter right now, they're still arguing about it. We're like 4 days into this, and they're still arguing over whether this is purposeful disinformation being put out by Lue Elizondo and his pals, or if this was just another accidental buffoonery mistake of the classic Lue Elizondo, who sometimes, since he's just human, like the rest of us, you know, fuck shit up. And there's nothing else to talk about in the whole goddamn hearing. You know, Avi Loeb gives a 30-minute presentation, which
it was moving.
Avi Loeb gives a 30-minute presentation, which is the exact same presentation that he just went through and has probably gone through on a whole bunch of different podcasts and other places. It's the same exact interview that he just gave to Chris Ramsey a week ago. Same lines, same words, same everything. So nothing new here. It's hard to blame him because I think he's like he's a real guy. He's a nuts and bolts scientist guy, and he's trying to get billions of dollars of people so he can go fund his research in the Pacific Ocean. He wants to send robots and ships and people and all sorts of technology down to scoop up pieces of UFOs. Again, and he wants to go back because his his means were limited last time. He only had so much money, and he came back with little tiny pieces of UFOs, and he wants to go back and try and find big pieces. And he also wants to send, spacecraft to chase down that Oumuamua thing and see what the fuck it was. And so I really think that he especially has been done a disservice by even being included in this panel, which I could see if you were being serious about UFOs and aliens in Congress that you may include Avi. But then when you see the makeup of the rest of the panel, it's honestly, it looks at face value as a way of discrediting him and discrediting, like I said, everyone else in the room, the politicians, the media, and the ufologists. And so that's what's going on. We'll switch over here. Let's look at it. Lue Elizondo. First, he made a Twitter post. First, he made an X post saying, I'm human. I make mistakes, and I admit to the mistakes when I make them. And this was not one of those moments. This was not a mistake. He says he did not make a mistake. He says that he held up this picture on purpose, knowing that it was unvetted, knowing that it might not be a UFO, because what he wanted to do was highlight that commercial civilian pilots do not have a way to report these kinds of things in any kind of official manner so that we can figure stuff out. So he kind of tries to do the Ryan Graves thing, but he does a really poor job of it, and that is barely, you can barely find little threads of that in what he actually said when he was presenting this picture to Congress. And so he puts up a long post on X saying, I didn't make a mistake. I did it on purpose. I wanted to get your attention. I'll do anything for disclosure. And I want to get people's attention. I wanted to bring everyone's attention, including Congress's attention, to the fact that civilian pilots don't have a way of reporting this stuff. Which is, every kind of word of that is nonsense, except for it does seem like he'd do anything. He will hold up fake pictures and say they're UFOs. For what end? For disclosure? Doesn't seem like it. You take everything that Elizondo does and says, and it doesn't seem like he's working towards or for disclosure. It seems like he's actually doing the opposite. Like some guy standing there in a black suit telling you about swamp gas and then zapping you with his little pocket zapper, right? It's the same exact thing. And that is what has happened now. The entire hearing, everyone in it has been completely discredited. And it's silly, right? And so he says, that was not a mistake. I didn't make a mistake. That was on purpose. And the reason, and the secondary reason for his X post was to say, I'm sorry, Kelly Chase, I didn't mean to block you. My X account must have gotten hacked. Which is like a funny thing this week for UFO Twitter and X. And in the aftermath of this is you have Kelly Chase, one of the most primary Lue Elizondo exponents in the field, who would block you and suspend you and get you dropped off of whatever platform in any way she possibly could if you ever even slightly questioned Elizondo or her in the past. And so she wrote something like, it's time to start asking serious questions about Elizondo and not giving him the benefit of the doubt when he makes mistakes. And she was banned by Elizondo for saying that. And then she went on X and bitched about it and said, oh my God, I can't believe someone would block somebody for asking questions. It's the same exact behavior that she's been doing for years at this point. There's hundreds and thousands of people on UFO Twitter that have been blocked by Kelly Chase for saying stuff like, do you think Elizondo is telling the truth? Do you think when he held up a picture of a chandelier to a room full of billionaires that he was just making a simple buffoonish mistake, or was he doing it on purpose? And she would block you from her Twitter and from YouTube and from whatever forum you were asking that question on just a very few months ago, before she decided, I think, in March to switch sides. Right? She switched sides. She went from being pro Elizondo to not pro Elizondo. She went from pursuing and promoting disclosure to not pursuing and promoting disclosure, and instead just kind of simply reporting on the topic. And she went from being on other people's podcasts and Twitter and saying, I don't make any money doing ufology, to saying the exact opposite. She was able to quit her day job and completely focus on this and do this all the time because of the money involved. And then, as the internet's exploding, going over Lue's UFO Twitter non-apology, the next day, Lue drops an apology video on YouTube to which he apologizes. And what he's apologizing for is for having not been very clear at the UFO hearing when he said, I didn't vet this photograph. And he was kind of unclear in his language afterwards, because his entire purpose was to, by showing that photo, had nothing to do with anything else in the universe except for highlighting the problem that commercial civilian pilots face with being able to report things that they've seen that they didn't understand. And so, of course, to do that, he would show an obvious picture of an irrigation circle in the middle of a shitload of other irrigation circles. So this is Lue 3.0 tripling down on his irrigation circle photo, which he admits to in here. He says, well, look, the pilot's actually really afraid now because, man, the backlash on this has been crazy. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously not a UFO now. And this is a guy who stood in front of Congress days ago and said, for some reason, he describes it as a lenticular object that's silver, as he's holding up a black and white photo of some farmer's field. Pretty fucking ridiculous. The sneezing monkey just literally laughing out loud about this is exactly what we should. How can you be any type of sane person, no matter how deep into ufology you are, or what kind of believer you happen to be? How can you watch this guy stand in front of Congress and hold up this picture and not laugh out loud? And what he originally starts laughing about is because he says, well, this is significantly large. So he starts giggling about that. And then he sees the photo. And as he sees the photo, he just absolutely loses his shit. And this, I mean, nothing negative towards vetted, which is a completely different category response here. Just lose his shit. But the fact that the sneezing monkey is willing to just kind of laugh out loud, lose his shit, take his headphones off, get his laugh on, while look at what we're watching happening in the middle of Congress, is very honest reporting. Versus, and I'm not saying this is dishonest, but it's a very different take when we watch vetted respond to the new UFO photo revealed by Lue Elizondo. And his response is, much more sober. You can just watch him. He's not laughing. He's not making fun of anybody. He does go through the deets, right? I mean, he's going through the deets of the photo. He's actually going through Lue's post right there. He shows you everything. Shows you all the pieces. Very calm and collected. And he says, hey y'all, everyone makes mistakes. And so we're not after Lue for making mistakes, for being fooled. hey y'all, it's okay to make mistakes. And that's true. That's an okay take to have. But he doesn't take it to the next kind of step, even though he does mention the chandelier and other problems that Lue has kind of had with the truth. But it's a much more measured and softer and friendlier criticism of Lue Elizondo, which is similar to Richard Dolan's response here. Richard Dolan says, well, that shit didn't look good, Lue. Just at a bare minimum, if we're not going to take all the other little steps or leaps at all, this didn't look good. And that's just really putting it super mildly, right? Because we could just browse Twitter for a moment. Mick West, Osiris, the average Chris Parish, even UFO Joe. UFO Joe has been losing his shit this week on this. He and I didn't know, and I follow UFO Joe pretty closely. We don't always agree. Actually, I'd say we don't agree very often. And all right, this is not working out easy for me. The UFO Joe. Sorry, UFO Joe. Because in the past I would describe him as part of Jeremy Corbell's very complicated, sophisticated, onion-like layers of echo chamber that he's kind of built up and established. And Joe Murgia is one of his workhorse young guns. And I have never, in the past, even though I think I've been following him fairly closely, I comment and share almost everything he talks about. But he is losing his shit about this Lue Elizondo nonsense. We'll go find it. I mean, this is just the start right here. But he goes really in depth. And this is a great example. This isn't Joe's post, but he's reposting it. But this is a great example, because here's another instance of Lue holding up a photo that he didn't take and he didn't vet. And he's saying all this weird shit about it that can't even be figured out, can't be corroborated, can't be. And so, even if this photo maybe is a real thing or a real photo, it's not of an irrigation circle. Just the fact that he now held up the irrigation photo in front of Congress and said, I didn't vet it, I didn't take it, but here's a 1,000-foot diameter lenticular silver object at 21,000 feet. At the minimum, it calls him to question everything else that he's ever done or said, right? And so, I don't know. Like I said, I'd never noticed any kind of like bent from the UFO Joe regarding Lue Elizondo before. Personally. Like, I had never noticed that. And so this week it's pretty clear that he's kind of fed up with Lue Elizondo, whether this was the final straw or something in the past, or he's always had kind of a problem with Elizondo. I'm not 100% sure. And, we're going to watch closer. I'm sorry, Joe, if it's always been the case. But definitely this week, this UAP hearing, he's lost his shit as far as Lue Elizondo goes. Lue's presentation this week for Congress has not been a good thing. And he's making some of the same points that I'm making, that if anything, even if on accident, which it doesn't seem like it's on accident, what the actual fuck, man? Why would this happen? And even if there's a good reason for it happening, even if we just take it as face value that like Lue Elizondo, despite all of his amazing credentials in this field, somehow was fooled and mistakenly thought that this was a photo that should be held up in front of Congress at a UFO hearing, and not just in front of Congress, but basically to the entire world. And that even him, in all of his awesomeness and truthfulness, couldn't tell that this is a photo that you should not hold up at Congress. This is a photo you should probably not hold up ever, unless you were making fun of Lue Elizondo for holding it up, right? And on top of that, everyone, all of the debunkers, and sorry if I missed someone in mentioning you, because I'm sure everyone has jumped on it, have gone through the video showing that this photo is a photo from satellite imaging near the Four Corners area that has been vertically altered a little bit, noise has been added, and etc. So it's been photoshopped, and it's a photo of an irrigation field, of an irrigation circle, of a farmer's field out in the middle of a whole shitload of other irrigation circle farmer fields. So there's no way that this photo could or should have been mistaken by anyone, anywhere, for anything. And that's kind of shitty. And so I think that's kind of that's the rub there, right, guys? Is that we had this UAP hearing. There's folks there, and we, you know, on this video we didn't even get into Eric Davis, so I don't think that's a lot of credibility. Like, the more the guy shows up on things and talks, the more he seems like a crazy wacko. And I think I have it on here. This is Ed's video. So Ed Davis is kind of like industry speaking the congressman right there, and look at the way he's looking. Let's just back this video up as we do this. We'll watch him while he's listening to Davis talk, and just watch the congressman and watch Avi Loeb.
Square the amplitude. So that goes negative. And that's an example of negative energy. The mass of the Earth creates space-time curvature.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, so that space-time curvature, which we feel is the force of gravity on the surface of the Earth, drags down quantum vacuum fluctuations in the quantum fields that are out in space near the Earth, in the vicinity of the Earth. And that energy density happens to be negative. And so this is an example of theoretically predicted.
That's Burleson over there, looking at him with crazy eyes.
Planetary sources of negative energy. So
Yeah,
that's
Avi
what
Loeb
you
has
really
to
go
laugh a little,
that's
borrow
what
the
you
mic
really
from
build,
Admiral.
construct a shell.
Look at him.
Just a brief comment of verification. We have two pillars, modern physics, quantum mechanics and Einstein's theory of gravity, which is curvature of space-time.
Right.
We don't have a reliable theory that combines
That's right.
quantum gravities. What we are hearing is speculation. We do not have the knowledge to figure out if you can create.
Look at Davis. Look at his face right now. His Avi Loeb is debunking him live. And, you know, debunking is probably the wrong word. I mean, you could just see the way the congressman was looking at Eric Davis as he was very poorly explaining Einstein physics. And, you know, Ed Davis, he's not, or Eric Davis, my bad. He's not an educator, to my knowledge. And if he is, he's not a very good one. He's not as practiced then as Avi Loeb. Because, you know, in Avi Loeb, in like 1.5 sentences, kind of makes Eric's point and then also kind of slaps it down as speculation. And so I think, that clip right there sums up and the way that the congressman is looking at Eric as he's speaking and as Avi Loeb interjects, it sums up everything about Eric Davis. Whether the Wilson Davis memo is real or not, which it seems like it is real, I mean, everything else, every time you see Eric on anything, his credibility, just his entire prestige is diminished at every single public appearance, more and more and more. The way he talks, the way people look at him when he's talking, and then he's the guy that Ufology has included at this hearing to explain to Congress and the world about the 4 main alien species that are visiting or on Earth or whatever, however you want to word it. And so, because of Lue's irrigation circle picture, we don't even really get to make fun of Eric Davis for talking about Nordics, Greys, insectoids, and reptilians. Which is just kind of another thing. Why do we gotta call them insectoids now instead of mantids? We're doing another lingo update, basically for no fucking reason, right in the middle of 2025. And they do it in the UFO hearing via Eric Davis. It's, you know, so I say, I mean, you watch Avi Loeb. There's another good spot is when he's just sitting here while Gallaudet is talking. And you just, man, what a disservice they've done to this character by making him sit here with these other mofos and listen to them talk and be polite and smile and then do his presentation, do all his little jokes about ugly people at parties. And he's got to do that while sitting between Eric Davis talking blah 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 about physics. And he even motions over to Avi before Avi interjects himself and says, you know, physicists like me and Avi, right, Avi? And then goes into his gobbledygook, blah, 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 that Avi has to then correct live. Like, the guy's being so polite that was the thing that he had to take the mic from Tim G and interject to tell the congressman that, look, Eric Davis is speculating. And you see Eric Davis's face, and he's like, fuck, I just got owned. Look at that. I'm getting owned. That's the face of someone getting owned live on air in front of the Congress, in front of the world. Right? That's the face you make. That is the quintessential face of a person who just got owned live in front of the entire planet. And he's just trying to explain that, you know, Einstein curvature physics of gravity. And Avi Loeb does it in, 7 words or something. So it's funny. The UAP hearing, it could have been a thing. I don't know how it would have been. They probably should have just had, Mellon and Loeb. McConnell, you could have kept him. He's basically a ufology nobody. He's, being hung out there as a congressional ufology asset that may be useful as far as this path of disclosure that's being pursued. But kind of a fucking nobody. He maybe wouldn't have been such a nobody if they'd just done this hearing with Chris Mellon and Avi Loeb. And they could have very easily juxtaposed with just those two characters kind of the official soft disclosure versus catastrophic disclosure points of view, and also the other side of the nuts and bolts, which is Avi Loeb, who is, very blatantly saying that Oumuamua is an alien spacecraft, and I want to go chase it down. And some other spacecraft has come here, whether it was a meteor that exploded or a comet. It hit the Earth, it put off 1% of Hiroshima and sprayed the Pacific Ocean with debris that he went and picked up little pieces of that show whatever the hell that thing was that exploded. It was from outside the solar system. It was an interstellar object. You know, what a missed opportunity as far as that side of things go. But on the other side of things, from the circus and the nonsense and the debunk, Elizondo holding up that picture, backed up by Eric Davis, talking his ass. It's like we're beyond going back to 2017 levels, which is kind of what Mellon was saying. I'm kind of afraid we haven't moved the ball since 2017, honestly. And this one moment, this very short few hours, takes the whole topic of ufology, all the people in it, everything that's even gone on since 2023 Grush, and all the new congressional hearings that have gone on since then, and washes it all out. It's all washed out. It's all just washed out. It's really, this guy with this goatee holding up a picture of some farmer's field in the middle of a whole bunch of other farmers' fields. It's funny, but it's so disappointing that it's depressing. It's beyond entertainment funny if you're vested into the subject in any way at all.